buyers right away are having to sign their life away before they look at this house to say how much they're going to be paying that agent in case the seller's not going to pay that compensation. Now they're stuck paying, let's say that agent says 3%. That's it. That's what you're paying me. And now they've just signed off and they're like, how am I going to pay this? I really want to buy this house, but I don't have the money to pay this. But what's important is that the public understands, be careful what you're signing and who you're signing that with. It's my biggest piece of advice I can give on this podcast today is go and interview 3, 4, 5 different realtors that were recommended to you and ask them the questions that are in my book. Look for the answers I'm telling you to look for, which are basically, does that realtor work for the person or are they working for the paycheck? If they're working for the paycheck, you probably don't want to hire them. They're going to, you want them to work for you. You want to be the priority. And then also you want to make sure that they have some really good experience and knowledge in industry. And then they have lots of folks that felt like they were super well taken care of by those agents. So be careful not to be signing paperwork with an agent that you don't know yet.
If you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and consider, if you're able, to become a paid subscriber on defenders-live.com. Your support is the only way I'm able to continue doing this labor of love. And also, if you're looking for exceptional firearms and self-defense training, go to defenders-usa.com and look at the calendar to see what's coming to your area this year. Tonight we have Cindy Ficklin on the show. Cindy was a teacher and school principal for 25 years, selling real estate on the side to supplement her teacher's salary. She resigned from education in 2019 to focus on her real estate career. And the very next year, she went straight to number 1, earning Salesperson of the Year within her regional area. She earned it again in 2022, and in 2023 was awarded the International President's Elite Recognition, which was ranking her in the top 1% in the world for real estate sales among Coldwell Banker agents worldwide. In 2024 in Western Colorado, she was voted by the people as Best of the West. Cindy recently wrote and published a book entitled The Smart Way to Buy a House for First-Time Homebuyers, with the intention of informing and protecting the public. Cindy holds a Bachelor of Business Administration degree, 2 master's degrees in education, and is currently working on her PhD in psychology. She is a patriot who loves this country, she loves freedom, and she loves God. Let's welcome the wonderful and talented Cindy Ficklin onto the show. Hey, Cindy.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Thanks for coming on.
Here.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, there's a lot of different areas that we could go into, Cindy, with you, because you are a fireball, as I understand, and you have a lot of passion in a lot of different areas, which is really exciting to me. One thing I really enjoyed about your bio that we can relate to on Defenders Live was you said that part of the reason you wrote the book was to protect the public.
Yes.
And I think that is such a valuable thing. Let's start there. Are there any particular things within that book that really need to stand out to people as far as what you consider protecting them?
Well, there's a lot happening right now. I don't know if the viewers have seen, but nationally, real estate laws have changed. It's the biggest changes in 100 years. Currently, right now, they're in it, and this is so different than what we've ever had in real estate. If you call on a sign or on a Zillow ad and you want to see a house, you could just call the listing agent and go take a look at it and decide whether or not you like it. And if you liked the agent, you could maybe look at hiring the agent. If you didn't like the agent, whatever. I mean, you got to see the house. That's how things used to be. Now there's something, and it's called something different in all the different states, but it's basically the threshold agreement. So you can't enter into a property without a threshold agreement signed. Now, what we are starting to see, and this was the concern, is that some listing agents are having buyers sign the threshold agreement, and then it signs their life away for however long that threshold agreement says that now they are their agent. And so that's a big concern. Everyone should have the opportunity to hire their realtor and exactly the same way you would hire anyone. The way you would hire an attorney or a doctor or someone to come replace your roof. I mean, we like to be able to interview people, talk to other folks who have worked with that person, find out all about their success level, their professionality, their background, their experience. And then in one of the chapters of my book, I give actually like about 20 different questions with sample questions, sample answers that are the right answers, and sample answers that are the wrong answers that should give you red flags on whether or not to hire that person to be able to choose your buyer's agent. And but right now, things have really changed. So you may end up, you've got to be really careful what you sign, and you really have to know what you're signing. And if you're uncomfortable signing something right now, I would say don't sign it, and then go ahead and decide who you want to represent you, who's going to be your buyer's agent before you start looking at property.
So what is the reason behind this, supposedly? What are you hearing about that?
So this current DOJ, there was a lawsuit from some home sellers that felt like they weren't adequately informed by their agents that they were going to be paying out a certain commission amount, and they also said that in the real estate world, that the expectation was 6%, 3% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the listing agent. Some agents used words like "this is the industry standard," and that got the industry in trouble because it looked like this was just a set amount. Now, I've been doing this 20 years, and it's always been negotiable how much the listing was going to be on one side and what the buyer's agent would be making. So it's always been negotiable, but unfortunately, because of the way that it was stated to some of the public, they got together and they sued the National Association of Realtors. And this DOJ, I mean, he took it. He definitely took it into a place that got us to where we're at today.
Wow.
So we're all trying to work, realize and work around what our new expectations are. My concern is that there are going to be a number of buyers that are going to be afraid to buy a house now or a piece of property, because when they sign that threshold agreement, it states on that agreement that how much that agent expects to be paid, and if the seller won't pay the compensation, they're calling it now buyer's agent compensation, that then the buyer has to pay it. So if the buyer wants to go see that house, now suddenly they are really locked into paying the buyer's agent compensation, whether they have the money to pay for it or not. And let's be real, a lot of folks, you've got to have your down payment, you have to have your closing costs on your loan, maybe a rate buy down because of where mortgage rates have been. They're coming down, thank goodness. And then now they have to have buyer's agent compensation on top of it. It's not realistic for a lot of home buyers. What I am seeing is that, at least in my market, most of the sellers are still paying for the buyer's agent compensation up to a certain point. And so I'm grateful for that. But buyers right away are having to sign their life away before they look at this house to say how much they're going to be paying that agent in case the seller's not going to pay that compensation. Now they're stuck paying, let's say that agent says 3%. That's it. That's what you're paying me. And now they've just signed off and they're like, how am I going to pay this? I really want to buy this house, but I don't have the money to pay this.
Right.
So some buyers are going to be afraid to buy it all. And then some are going to end up stuck with agents that may or may not have served them the highest possible capacity. What I decided to do was, and I'll pull it out here. I wrote, okay, there we go. I wrote this book, and it's The Smart Way to Buy a House for First-Time Home Buyers. It's actually for all home buyers. I have some clients, they've been buying and selling property with me for the last 20 years. They've bought and sold a lot of property. She read the book and she's like, oh my gosh, Cindy, I learned so much. So even though they're, well-versed at it, they still learned quite a bit from the book. I wanted to make sure I put everything in there that you need to know to be able to protect yourself. In every chapter, so first of all, I wrote it super sassy, so it would be interesting.
Not you, I can't imagine.
In fact, it's so super sassy that legal that I had go through the book was like, yeah, Cindy, you probably should take this out and that out. Like, so it really is interesting for that reason. But also I put horror stories, and they're all true life horror stories of what have happened to people if they didn't know the content in that chapter. So I tried to make everything, super interesting. And then, when I was a teacher and school principal, the way that I know, and then I also taught real estate classes too for 11 years. The way that people learn is you invoke an emotional response, and then they will always remember that content. So that's what I did in each of those chapters, is I invoked an emotional response. And that way the buyer, once they have finished reading this book, they feel fully informed. They feel like they could probably teach it, is what I've been told, because of the way that I've written everything in here. It's really a 90-minute to 2-hour read. It's not going to take you all day to read. So, but that's one of the reasons that I wrote the book.
Well, and combining your experience and education into real estate, natural fit, perfect fit, and especially needed right now. What have you been seeing since 2020, especially in the real estate market? It seems as though buyers are having a harder time buying. And I know the market's a little bit different in different areas, but overall, what are you seeing?
Oh, it's been so interesting. First of all, the majority of real estate agents got into the business in the last 4.5 years. So everybody saw, everything was selling, and we had bidding wars all over the place. It didn't matter if it was junk or not, it would sell and we'd have bidding wars on it. So what I do for a living seemed easy out there to a lot of folks. So everyone and their dog got a real estate license. And then now they're out there, a lot of them, not all of them, some of them are amazing, but some of them just don't have the knowledge and experience they need to truly adequately represent their clients. I'm seeing some things happening that makes me very nervous for the public, which is partly why I wrote the book. We saw that big run up on prices. So things essentially doubled in price. Everybody saw that. And then we saw inflation out of whack, and then mortgage rates just climbed straight up. Back about a year ago, I started to see interest rates, even the folks that didn't have the best credit, they were being quoted in the 9% range for their mortgage rate. And we hovered between 7 and 8% for a long time. So people that were going to be selling their homes, they were like, I'm not going to sell. I'm in a 2% or a 3% mortgage. I'm here forever now, because they realized that if they bought something, their payment would more than double. It might even not be quite as expensive of a house because of the cost to borrow money. So we really didn't have a lot of inventory. And then buyers, so they kind of struggled and were like, okay, I'm going to pay those rates. And then we started to see property just kind of hang out there and not necessarily sell. We started to see divorces. A lot of the listings that I've had in the last 6 months have been divorces because they have to sell, required by the court, and or people that have moved out of area, and so they have to sell. So anybody that has to sell, they ended up having to either reduce price or maybe pay for a rate buy down. Now, of course, there's those outliers where the houses had everything everybody wants and they still went into a bidding war. The 4 to 5 bedroom, 3 bath, 3 car garage with RV parking with central air on the right side of town for under 600,000. Boy, those were bidding wars like crazy still on those. Or homes that were priced under 350,000 that were not junk. Those would go into bidding wars too for a long time.
Yeah.
Right now, I see the most beautiful inventory at that 350 and under or 400,000 and under. I'm stoked. It's gorgeous inventory, and they're on a $400,000 home. Just this past Saturday, I was able to get $30,000 off list price on this $400,000 home that's super nice in the right side of town. Well, I'm not supposed to say right side of town. In the area of town that appreciates at the highest level historically. That's the way I'm supposed to say it. Okay. We're not supposed to steer, right side or left or wrong side of town. But anyhow, we're starting to see more inventory, and we're starting to see mortgage rates coming down. In fact, I have a couple of lenders that are brokers, and they're quoting, I got one quoted 4.87 yesterday. So,
wow.
And so brokers are a little bit different than your regular lenders. It's kind of a long story, but they are getting, nice and low. For the most part, I'd say most of the lenders are somewhere around 5.5 to 6. So these are really doable rates now, and the inventory is good. And some sellers really need to sell, and they're willing to play ball and bring down the prices. So it's a great time. But what's important is that the public understands, be careful what you're signing and who you're signing that with. It's my biggest piece of advice I can give on this podcast today is go and interview 3, 4, 5 different realtors that were recommended to you and ask them the questions that are in my book. Look for the answers I'm telling you to look for, which are basically, does that realtor work for the person, or are they working for the paycheck? If they're working for the paycheck, you probably don't want to hire them. They're going to, you want them to work for you. You want to be the priority. And then also you want to make sure that they have some really good experience and knowledge in industry. And then they have lots of folks that felt like they were super well taken care of by those agents. So be careful not to be signing paperwork with an agent that you don't know yet.
That's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that with us. Because
Sure.
I've heard rumors and murmurs of what you're talking about, but I didn't quite understand it. So I'm curious then, still in this idea of protecting ourselves, what are your thoughts as we're in an election year this year? A lot of things can change very quickly. Do you have any advice for people as far as how they should play their cards, depending on what happens in the next year or two? I know it could go, who knows where it's going to go, right? But I know there are whispers of recession. And what does that mean for homeowners? And how do we navigate that?
Well, I think one of the reasons that we've seen such a contraction on buying right now is because of the election and the uncertainty. Even though rates are the lowest they've been since January of last year, and they're down anywhere between a point to a point and a half, you would think that there'd be a run on all the real estate that's out there. And that's not what we're seeing, at least yet. So I actually pulled off several of my listings a little over a month ago. And I said, things were just hanging out there. People were having to price reduce like crazy to sell their properties. And these particular sellers didn't have to sell. So I was like, let's pull it off the market and wait until after the Fed reduces the interest rates. Now, interest rates and mortgage rates are different. Mortgage rates are, it's circuitous that interest rates eventually affect the mortgage rate, and it's through the bond market. Interest rates affect the bond market. But anyhow, I said, let's wait until the perception is out there that the Fed has reduced interest rates and we know that mortgage rates are down. Let's put it in when we have lower inventory, and then that's the right time to sell. So that's really been one of the things that I've been doing. There is still, however, quite a bit of uncertainty because of this election. People are worried if this one side has inflationary types of policies where you have lots of government spending, and if we see inflation tick back up again, we're going to end up with higher interest rates again. And what is that going to do? And then the other side has a strong history of a strong economy, and if that person wins, then oh my goodness, everyone's going to want to own real estate.
Right.
And I even had a lender partner that was telling me, and he's always had kind of the crystal ball, if you will. He's all brilliant with economics and understanding all the different indicators. And he's like, we've always said we'll probably never see 3% mortgages ever again in our lifetime. And he said, who knows? Like maybe that could even happen if we have a roaring economy again, and we're not overspending in our government budget.
Hey guys, I would like to invite you to something new that I'm offering. I am going to be hosting a live Zoom call once a month for my paid subscribers. I really want to offer something special, something valuable, and something with a personal touch to you every month. And this is my way of helping you guys on your journey. And what you can expect is a variety of different topics, all within 4 buckets that I talk about on Defenders Live, which are health and well-being, mental and emotional health, spiritual fitness, and self-defense. So once a month, I am going to be presenting some questions to you during that Zoom call. We're going to have a conversation live, and there's a good chance that the founder of Defenders USA, Adam Winch, might be on that call as well. So I invite you to join me on the Defenders Live community. As a paid subscriber, you will be getting emails about these once a month. You can sign up for this by going to defenders-live.com and becoming a paid subscriber. I hope to be talking to you soon and seeing you in the live Zoom calls. Thank you so much for your support of Defenders Live. So you're seeing a lot of people put the pause button on right now in wait and see mode. Is that what you're seeing?
I am, because they think that there's the potential that rates could go down a little more, or there's the potential that home prices will go down a little more, and they might go down a little more. I don't think that we're going to see a crash like we did in '08, and the reason is because 60% of homeowners are in mortgages that are under 4% or under 4.5%. So that's and then also a significant number of those have 100,000 or more of equity. So I don't think we're going to see like this crash, but I do think that depending on how things go with this election, it will have some impact. But people are out there just kind of hanging out and waiting. I would say though, if the side wins that it doesn't have the inflationary policies and has
You can say what you want to say, Cindy. It's
history.
fine.
Can I? Okay.
Yeah, there's no censoring here.
I really feel like if Trump wins and he's able to have another Trump economy, everyone's going to wish that they were homeowners and experiencing that ride.
Yeah.
So,
and that'll be good for everybody.
It will. There's a lot of discussion about affordable housing right now on both sides of the political aisle, and I so appreciate that. But what's important there is that affordable housing is not rentals. It's about home ownership, private property rights, private property ownership. Because if you look at the United States of America, what made it so great is that people could own property. You didn't have serfs and lords. You didn't have the government that owns all the property. People can own their own private property rights. They can experience and grow their generational wealth and pass on their generational wealth. It's really tremendous what we can do in this country with private property. That's taken away where everybody's deciding that where the government takes that away from the people and they have to rent and they don't get to own private property. It's going to change the entire dynamic of how our country operates and really truly the way that the structure of our government. That's scary. That is terrifying because you can do what you want to with, well, except for homeowners associations, which is another story. but you know, to be able to use your property in the way that you want to use it and pass it on to your family members or your heirs or whoever you want to pass it on.
Yeah, legacy is really important to many Americans, I think.
Right.
And having property is part of that for many people.
Definitely.
I'm really curious to hear your opinion on, and maybe it's inaccurate. So if it's inaccurate, please tell me. I know just enough to be dangerous, Cindy, but I heard whispers of possibly new laws going into effect in California where the government is helping illegal immigrants become property owners. That topic and the topic of so many foreigners, especially China, buying farmland and lots of residential property and turning it into rental property. Do you have opinions and maybe more factual data than I do on those two things?
In Colorado, there's a significant tax for selling property. If you're a foreign entity and you buy property and then you sell it, the taxes are extraordinary for that foreign entity. So at least that's a step in the right direction for to dissuade foreign investment. But we need to go a lot further. Otherwise, we'll just get pushed out. There's a lot of money in some of these foreign governments, and they've gotten it in all kinds of ways. Some are good and some are not. But so we really need to focus on we the people first. My heart, so the folks that are, I see there's two types of those of immigrants. So you're the ones that do it right, that follow the laws, that come in and they work on getting, they're documented, they're working on
legal.
Yeah, all the things, right?
Yeah.
They want the American dream and they're willing to follow the laws to become that. I'm all for those folks becoming homeowners here. We're all we all started out as immigrants, except for the Native Americans. So I'm all in for them. Those people that are breaking our laws and coming into our country and then expecting handouts and expecting to be given the money to buy up this little bit of inventory that we do have, that seems really irresponsible and dangerous. I'm very worried for that. We already don't have enough inventory for our current Americans. We know that. Another thing, Kamala Harris has talked about that $25,000 going to first-time homebuyers. And when I first heard that, I was like one of the other, like most of the country, I'm like, oh, that would be awesome, to have that down payment. And then my economics background kicked in and I'm like, oh my God, that is going to inflate home prices so terribly.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to make home ownership even that much more unaffordable. And then what have we done? Now we're serfs and lords. Now the government owns not just the means of production, but they also own the private property rights. And then we're no longer a democracy or a democratic republic, which is what we actually are. But anyhow, I'm very concerned about what they're talking about there. And I really, if she wins, I hope she reconsiders those things and puts Americans first. That'd be nice.
That's what's so dangerous is that everything seems like being discerning is very important right now on every level. It seems like from the highest level to signing a contract with someone, having discernment is of the utmost importance, and things that seem totally cool and legit on the surface can actually be really detrimental to us and
Yes.
to our country. And I think people are starting to wisen up a little bit and wanting to look into things a little bit deeper than they used to. Have you been seeing that?
So back in 2020, whenever I was telling all of my different friends, whether they were in back then, it wasn't so much about Republicans, Democrats, Independents. It wasn't when everything shut down, we were all kind of,
In the same
at
boat.
first, right, until we really weren't,
Yeah.
and everything really divided. But I think that, sorry, what was your question? Sorry, I went back into 2020 and got scared.
I was saying how discernment is so important, and I've been seeing more and more people be asking a lot more questions and looking into things more than they used to.
Yes. Okay. So we used to think that the media was telling us the truth, or at least striving to tell us the truth for the most part. You still have half the country that thinks that's what they're doing. But I'd say most people, I'd say 60%, if in looking at polls, 60% of the population see that there is an agenda there and that they're not necessarily telling us the truth, and that we need to fact check ourselves, and that the conspiracy theorists might not be the conspiracy theorists, because the conspiracy theorists have been right a lot. I think that more and more people, even those in the middle and those a few on the left, it's amazing. I'm going to tangent on you for a second here.
Go ahead.
But I am a member of Club 20, which is a bipartisan action group serving, I believe it's 22 counties in Western Colorado and Voices of Rural Colorado. And then I'm on the legislative committee for the Grand Junction Chamber, and I was for the Fruita Chamber as well. So anyhow, in talking with people on both sides of the political aisle, I went from being pretty much hated in late 2020 and 2021 to big hugs from Democrats and listening to me. I listen to them too. I mean, I like to hear their perspectives on things as well, but really, they're really listening, and they're really starting to sound a little more principled and conservative on some things, and really putting business first. Like, what does business first really look like? What does defending capitalism really look like? What does freedom really, really look like? And so it's been, what is, the overregulation, they are really starting to realize that that's just suffocating small businesses. And I'm delighted and encouraged by what I'm seeing with some on the left, and they are also realizing that their mainstream media is taking them, whoever the powers that be are taking them down this narrative that they're supposed to buy hook, line, and sinker, and they're starting to think for themselves and ask some questions. So I do feel like that is happening. I hope it's enough in time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I have one final question because we don't have much time left, and it's totally off topic, but I'm very curious about it. So you've pursued quite a few degrees, and most recently, you're still, I don't know if it said you're still pursuing this last one, the PhD.
Right.
In psychology, of all things, Cindy. So, psychology. What's that? Why? What's that about?
It's kind of a story. So okay. I was the school principal for the Division of Youth Corrections for a half decade. And so even though my background was education, I ended up in corrections and juvenile corrections, the worst of the worst juvenile offenders in 22 counties.
Wow.
And that was a big eye opener into the world of psychology. So this is going to sound nuts, but I got super interested in sociopaths and psychopaths, and what makes them tick, how they become that way, what manipulations they use to be able to control their victims, and how they really enjoy hurting others. It just gets them excited and gives them supply, is what we call it.
Power.
Yeah, they feed on it. They would suffocate without it. Like that's what they have to have. So they're fascinating to me. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that my studies in psychology would actually mirror the enemy, if you will, of those that are trying to destroy our country, because they're using the gaslighting, bait and switch, intermittent conditioning, all the different manipulations that create this cognitive dissonance where people are just like, oh, whatever, I'm too tired to worry about it. I've just got to live my life. And then in the meantime, they're destroying the country some more and some more and some more. And it's just been, I'm watching everything that I was studying and writing about in psychology. I'm watching it happen before our very eyes. The cool thing, and I ran across this in my studies, it's a phenomenon called post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth happens to 20% of victims of psychological abuse. These are the people who, instead of wanting to commit suicide or drink themselves to death or use drugs to try and handle what's happened to them and cope, this 20%, they actually bounce into the stratosphere. If you think of a trampoline and how you hold someone down on a trampoline trampoline and then let them go and then they bounce up super high. That's post-traumatic growth. So these people are experiencing,
I didn't know that was a thing.
It's the coolest thing ever.
Wow.
They become that much more successful in business and in career. They triple their friends groups. They believe in themselves and they believe that they can accomplish anything, and they do. So it is the coolest thing. So being that we've gone down this route with our country that has been terrifying. My biggest hope is that there are enough people, just like I'm experiencing over at Club 20 and the Chamber, that are coming together and realizing the truth of what's been happening with the psychological manipulation of the American people. And then I hope we get that post-traumatic growth and just bounce, baby. I think it could be just absolutely phenomenal.
That would be amazing. Wow. I did not know that was a thing. I learned something new today. Well, I learned lots of new things, but that I've never heard of before.
Well, and then taking it back around to real estate in all of those. So getting bidding wars going, that's in Colorado, we have a paragraph 5.8 in our contract, and it essentially gives the permission to get a bidding war going on the property. And I used to explain, and I still do, explain to my sellers that the minute there is an interested buyer on your property, the property can be on the market for weeks. But once there's someone interested, then the listing agent, if they are doing their job right, they will call all the other buyer's agents who had interested buyers and say, hey, I've got an offer on the table. Is your buyer still interested? And I call it the boyfriend effect. Nobody wants the boy in high school until the one girl wants the boy. And then all the girls want the boy. And it's the same thing in real estate. So that psychology applies. And
what is the name of that psychology? Do you know?
Gosh, that's the boyfriend effect. Look, Cindy Ficklin is going to term it the boyfriend effect. I'm talking about myself in the third person. Trump can do it, so I'm going to do it too.
Of course you can. That's awesome. I love that. You know what? I feel like we got to wrap up here, but I feel like we just barely scratched the surface of what we could go through. Cindy, I have a feeling there's a lot more to you than this, 30, 40-minute conversation that we've had. But I do appreciate your time. And I think you've delivered some real valuable information to my audience. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Where can people go to find your book?
So it's on Amazon. So if you type in The Smart Way to Buy a House and then Cindy Ficklin, it should come up. And then I should have had my QR code ready to go right here. I'll just make sure that I send it to you.
Yeah,
and then
I can put it up.
And then also I'm writing a book, The Smart Way to Sell Your House for Savvy Home Sellers. And there's quite a bit of psychology in that and protections. And I'm also writing a book because I finished out my career in education as a business teacher. I started a business school within the walls of high school. So the kids got college credit for the business classes.
Cool.
So now I'm studying, I'm lucky. I get to work with some of the top producing real estate agents in the country. I earned a big trip to Mexico to some super high-end resort with the top real estate agents across the country at Coldwell Banker in November. So I'm going to be digging into their brains and find out what is it that they did different to be able to be at the top. Cool. All of that is going into a book that I'm writing called Ignite Your Small Business, Dare to Be Different. Ooh. So it's everything that's different. And I'm also having an underlying Christian piece to that too, because that's really the foundation for all of it. But I'm really excited about working on these projects and getting them out. And if once I get them finished, if you'd have me back, I'd love to talk about them some more.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say, because I'm like, oh man, there's so many things we didn't talk about today that we could have gotten into. We don't really have the time, and good deep conversation takes time. So maybe this is just the first time we'll see you, Cindy, and we'll have you back on again once you have another book out. So make sure, guys, go to Amazon.com. Will you put that book up again so people can see it? What's the name of it?
So here we go. The
Smart Way to Buy
a House for First-Time Homebuyers.
Yeah.
And
go check that out.
It is, and my name is Cindy Ficklin. That's F as in fabulous, Icklin. And I wrote it sassy, so you'll have to. And if you write a review for Amazon, every 5-star review I get, it actually boosts up higher. So I'm hopeful. I'm learning this. This is my first time out of the chute being an author, so I'm learning all the little tricks of the trade. And
pretty soon you'll be writing books on how to be an author. In another 5 or 10 years.
What's funny is I'm actually doing a women's conference in March, and then Faith Over Fear in the end of October.
Are you really?
Yeah,
Where?
So, That one's in Orlando.
Oh, cool.
And then the women's conference is in Grand Junction, and it's a huge, beautiful conference for women. But I'm going to be teaching, everybody has that book inside of them, that one that they're like, I should write a book. Well, yes, you should. Don't stop. Get it finished. But the hardest part of publishing the book was learning the KDP publishing piece, and then getting it up into Amazon and doing all the things, that self-publishing piece. But what a great time for us to be alive, because we can do this now. It's just took me about 4 months to learn it, because I went to all these podcasts. I listened to all these podcasts and YouTube videos, read all the books. I went to a conference learning how to do this. And now that I've done it, I'm like, oh my gosh, the teacher in me kicks in. I'm like, I can teach this in 30 minutes. What took me 4 months to learn, I can teach this to people in 30 minutes. So, so that's what I'll be doing. Everybody should write that book that they've always.
You know what? I think what I appreciate and love about you the most, Cindy, is your passion and fire for life, your drive, your charisma, all the things. But I can see that it comes from a place of service, and I appreciate that about you. And I love that you love learning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm grateful. God has surrounded me with the most amazing humans, and I'm so thankful for all of it. And I'm grateful to know you and our
This is just the beginning.
Friends. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today, Cindy. You've been great.
Thank you. Bye.